The chains that bind you are not always made of iron. Sometimes they are invisible stories you still let live in your mind. That's the truth most people don't want to face, my friends. You've heard it everywhere. Just go no contact, cut them off, stay silent. That'll destroy them. Sounds good, sounds simple, right? But here's the shocking reality. No contact alone doesn't always break them. Silence doesn't guarantee collapse. In fact, in many cases, it does the opposite. It feeds their ego. And today, in this video titled, "No Contact Won't Break Them, but This Will Destroy Their Ego," we're going to pull back the curtain and see what really crushes that fragile, inflated mask they hide behind. But before we dive in, do me a favor. Press that like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me till the very end, because what I'm about to share might just change the way you look at silence, power, and freedom forever. Hey folks, imagine this. You walk off the battlefield thinking you've won because you put your sword down. You think silence is the end. But the enemy, you know the type I'm talking about, the narcissist, he doesn't see your silence as defeat. He twists it, reshapes it, spins a new story. In his head, your silence isn't strength, it's obsession. It's proof that you're still thinking of him, still trapped in his play, still circling his throne like a shadow. That's how dangerous the narcissist's mind is. They don't live by truth, they live by the stories they invent to protect their fragile ego. Carl Jung once said, "People don't live by truth, but by the symbols and narratives they create." And that's exactly what you're up against. Now let's get a little real here. How many times have you been told that walking away in silence makes you powerful? And yet deep down, you're still hurting, still overthinking, still waiting for the day they realize what they lost. That's not freedom, that's still bondage, my friends. Because if they still live in your head, even in silence, they've already won. And trust me, narcissists know how to twist absence into applause for themselves. They'll tell themselves, "See, they still can't get over me. He's still stuck on me. I'm unforgettable." And the more they believe it, the stronger their illusion grows. Silence alone leaves too much room for their lies. Let me break it to you with a metaphor. Think of a mask. A mask only cracks when pressure is applied from the inside. If you simply stop poking at it, the mask stays intact. That's what silence alone does. It leaves the mask untouched. They go on pretending, parading, convincing themselves they are untouchable. But here's the truth. What destroys that mask is not you disappearing, but you transforming. Not you being silent, but you living in a way that proves they never even mattered. Folks, that's when their ego begins to starve. Let's add a little fun perspective. Imagine a spoiled actor on stage waiting for applause. You leave the theater thinking you've punished him by not clapping. But in his head, he says, "They're too stunned by my brilliance. They're still thinking about me." He walks off that stage puffed up, bigger than before. That's what happens with silence. But now imagine instead, you not only walk out of the theater, you build your own stage, your own life, and the whole town gathers to watch you. Suddenly, his stage is empty, his script meaningless, his applause gone. That's the collapse. That's the ego death. So don't fall for the lie that silence alone is your ultimate weapon. Silence is just the beginning, not the end. What truly destroys their ego is when you step into your real power, when you rebuild, when you grow, when you thrive so loudly through your actions that their story about you disintegrates. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That, my friends, is the kind of strength that makes a narcissist's world crumble. And here's what I want you to do right now. In the comments, write this affirmation. I am untouchable now. Say it, show it, live it. Let the world see that you're not just escaping, you're evolving. And while you're at it, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're only getting started, and what's coming next will open your eyes even wider. Stay with me, because we're about to dig into what really makes the narcissist's ego collapse once and for all. I am untouchable now. Write it below. Show it to yourself. Show it to the world. Number 1. The myth of silence. The greatest prison people live in is the fear of what others think. These words, my friends, cut deeper than most people realize. Because when it comes to dealing with narcissists, silence alone is often misunderstood. You've been told that no contact, disappearing, refusing to answer, that's the ultimate weapon. And yet, here's the truth that hurts. Silence does not always break them. In fact, for many narcissists, your silence is not a defeat, it's proof of their power. They twist it, manipulate it, and reshape it into fuel for their fragile ego. Imagine this. You step off the battlefield. You drop your sword and believe the war is over. You think silence means victory. But in their world, in their distorted imagination, the battle is still raging, and they're still winning. In their mind, you didn't walk away because you're strong. You walked away because you couldn't handle them. You didn't disappear because you found peace. You disappeared because you're secretly obsessed. This is the dangerous trick of their psyche. They don't live by truth. They live by the stories they invent. And your silence becomes a blank page for them to write their lies upon. This is the fear that creeps in at night, isn't it? You wonder, what if they think I'm still obsessed? What if they tell people I can't move on? What if my silence makes them feel untouchable? And that's exactly how they thrive, through illusions. Carl Jung once said, "People don't live by truth, but by the symbols and narratives they create." A narcissist is the living embodiment of this. Their entire existence is built on the mask they wear, the role they force others to play, and the story they spin around every silence, every reaction, every absence. Here's the hard lie you've been sold, that walking away in silence automatically weakens them. Folks, it doesn't. If you stay silent but still carry them in your heart, if you disappear but still think of them every day, then in their world, they're still the star. Silence without transformation is nothing more than a pause in their play. And believe me, they will fill that pause with more fantasy, more ego, more illusion. They'll tell themselves, "See, they still care. They still feel my shadow hanging over them." Think of it like this. Picture a mask on a stage. That mask doesn't fall just because the audience grows quiet. In fact, the silence can make the mask shine even brighter under the spotlight. The actor walks off proud, convinced he still holds the room. That's the narcissist's mind. They mistake your silence for proof that you're still in their universe. Silence alone doesn't shatter the mask, it leaves it untouched. What truly breaks the mask is not silence, it's erasure, it's nullification. It's you building a life so far outside their script that they can't imagine themselves in your story anymore. But let's be honest, it's difficult. It's easier to stay silent and hope time will do the work for you. It's easier to disappear and secretly wonder if they notice. It's tempting to fantasize about them suffering while you stay quiet. But all of that still ties you to their world, and that's what you must break. Because the truth is, as long as they still occupy your mind, as long as your silence is filled with their shadow, they haven't collapsed. You're still carrying them, and they can sense it. Why do they think like this? Why do they twist even your absence into their power? Because, as Jung pointed out, they refuse to face their shadow. They cannot look at the emptiness within, so they cover it with illusions. Every reaction, every thought, every silence from you becomes clay in their hands, shaped into proof of their false greatness. They need you, even your quiet, to keep their story alive. And that's the lie we're here to break. So rise above the fear. Silence alone is not the weapon. It's not the end game. The real weapon, the one that terrifies them, is your transformation. When you are silent but thriving, silent but free, silent but radiating a life they cannot touch, that is when the illusion begins to crumble. That's when the mask cracks from within. Because they can no longer spin your silence into their story if your life has already proven their story false. Let me put it in another metaphor. Think of a fire. If you pour water on it, it dies. If you feed it with oxygen, it grows. Now, silence alone can act like oxygen if they twist it in their mind. They'll breathe it in and convince themselves they're still burning in your thoughts. But when you remove not just the oxygen, but the very wood beneath the fire, the fuel, it collapses. The wood, my friends, is your emotional investment, your inner focus, your need for them to collapse. Remove that, and the fire suffocates on its own. This is where Stoicism comes in. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The narcissist thrives when you believe your silence controls them. But Stoicism reminds us, the control was never about them, it was always about you. You can't force their ego to collapse with silence, but you can collapse the chains they built in your mind. And once those chains fall, they lose the very stage they've been acting on. So here's the motivation you need to hold close. You don't need them to break. You don't need their mask to fall for you to win. You only need to rise. Because when you rise, when you heal, when you thrive, their ego collapses not by your effort, but by your absence from their story. That is the real victory. That is the true end game. And today, I want you to claim that truth for yourself. I want you to write in the comments right now, "I am free from their story." Say it. Show it. Let the world around you feel it. Because the moment you break free from their story is the moment their ego begins to crumble. Not because you forced it, but because you erased their script from your life. So stay with me, because we're only just beginning. If silence won't break them, what will? The answer is deeper, more powerful, and it's waiting in the next part of this journey. I am free from their story. Write it below. Show them, show yourself, and show the world around you. Number 2, the mask of illusion. Man is not what he is in the eyes of others, but what he hides within himself. My friends, that single truth explains the entire psychology of a narcissist. On the surface, they look confident, untouchable, even radiant. But behind that polished face is nothing more than emptiness, shame, and fear. They cannot bear to see that darkness, so what do? They build a mask, a flawless mask of charm, success, and control. And here's where most people get trapped. They believe that by staying silent, by cutting off contact, they'll rip that mask off. But silence doesn't always remove the mask. Sometimes it only makes the mask shine brighter. Picture this. A stage actor stands under the spotlight wearing a perfect costume. The audience goes quiet. Do you think that silence embarrasses him? No, it feeds him. He takes their silence as awe, as proof that he has captivated every soul in the room. That's exactly what a narcissist does with your no contact. They don't interpret it as rejection, they interpret it as fascination. They rewrite your silence into a story where they are still the star. And the more you hide, the more they inflate. Now, let me ask you something. How many times have you imagined them wondering about you during no contact? How many times have you fantasized about them missing you, regretting what they lost? That right there is the trap. Because even in your silence, you're still playing in their play. You're still imagining their reaction, still centering your thoughts around them. And what happens? They win. Not because they're strong, but because you still give them a place in your inner world. Carl Jung explained this perfectly. He said, "People don't live by truth, but by the symbols and images they create." The narcissist lives entirely in that world of symbols. Your silence is not truth to them. It's a symbol they twist into victory. They'll think, they can't face me. They're still hurting. They're still obsessed. And the saddest part? Many of them will broadcast this to others, bragging that you couldn't get over them. Their mask stays intact. Their illusion grows stronger, and you're left wondering why the silence hasn't shattered them yet. The mask of illusion is their survival tool. It hides their shadow, the shame they deny, the fear of abandonment they can't face, the deep worthlessness they bury under arrogance. And the more they feel that shadow trying to rise, the tighter they cling to the mask. So when you go silent, do you think they face the shadow? No. They put more makeup on the mask. They add more stories, more fantasies, more lies to protect themselves. And as long as you're quiet but still hurting, they don't have to face reality. Here's the hard truth you need to accept. Silence alone does not unmask them. In fact, sometimes it reinforces the mask. Because in their distorted world, they'll always spin silence in their favor. They'll tell themselves you're watching from afar, that you're weak, that you still care. And if you're still checking their social media, still talking about them to friends, still secretly waiting for their downfall, you're unintentionally helping them keep the mask alive. So how do you break this illusion? Not by arguing, not by proving, not by exposing them to others. The mask only falls when you stop playing the role they assigned you, when you stop being the admirer, the victim, the dependent. When your life becomes so authentically yours that they can no longer insert themselves into your story. That's when the mask begins to crack. Not because you ripped it off, but because it no longer fits in the world you've built. Think of it like a mirror. As long as you reflect back their image, the mask has a reason to exist. But when you remove the mirror, when you no longer react, no longer orbit around them, the mask loses its power. It doesn't matter how shiny it looks under the light. Without an audience, it becomes meaningless. That's the real collapse. But here's why it feels difficult. Because deep inside you still crave justice. You still want them to feel the pain they caused you. And silence seems like justice. It seems like the perfect punishment. But justice doesn't come from silence. Justice comes from growth. Justice comes when you rise so high that their mask, their stories, their illusions look pathetic compared to the truth of your life. That's when people around you see the difference. That's when their ego finally weakens. Remember this, their mask is fragile. It looks strong, but it's built on lies. And lies can't survive forever in the face of truth, your transformation, your freedom. That's the storm that shatters the mask. So today, I want you to make a choice. Stop waiting for your silence to be the weapon. Stop hoping the mask will fall on its own. Instead, become the storm. Write this in the comments right now. I destroy their mask with my truth. Say it out loud. Feel it in your chest. Show it to yourself. Show it to the world. And know this. Every time you live authentically, every time you choose growth over revenge, every time you refuse to play their game, their illusion loses strength. Stay with me, because next we're going to uncover their real addiction, the lifeline that keeps their mask alive, and how cutting that supply will make their entire ego tremble. I destroy their mask with my truth. Write it below, claim it, and live it. Number 3, attention is their lifeline. What you give attention to grows. My friends, that isn't just a quote for self-help posters. It's the very engine that keeps a narcissist alive. They don't breathe oxygen the way you and I do. They breathe attention. It doesn't matter whether that attention comes as love, anger, admiration, or even silence twisted into obsession. For them, any form of energy directed their way is food. And this is why so many people who go no contact are left confused. They expect silence to starve the narcissist, but in the narcissist's mind, silence is just another form of attention, another chance to twist the story in their favor. Imagine a fire. It doesn't care what fuel it gets, wood, paper, or scraps of cloth. As long as it burns, it's alive. That's the narcissist's ego. It will feed on anything. If you love them, they inflate. If you argue, they inflate. If you cry, they inflate. And yes, if you disappear without healing, they inflate even more, because they convince themselves that your silence is proof you're still consumed by them. Their fire doesn't stop burning just because you stop talking. They take your absence and twist it into smoke that still fills their lungs. Now let's pause here. Isn't this the fear you felt? You wonder, what if my silence makes them think they've won? What if they see me disappearing as weakness? What if they tell others I'm still obsessed? And here's the harsh truth. They probably will, because that's what they do. They don't live in reality. They live in the story. They need to believe they're still the center of your mind. Because the moment they're not, the moment your world truly moves on without them, their entire ego collapses. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." For the narcissist, the unconscious is that shame-filled shadow they can't face. To avoid it, they rewrite reality. They project, they distort. They create a false universe where every silence, every absence, every blocked number is still about them. Because the alternative, the reality that you don't care anymore, is unbearable. This is why attention is their lifeline. Not just your words, not just your emotions, but your mental presence. If they can convince themselves they still live in your head, they feel alive. That's why blocking them sometimes inflates their ego. They'll say, "They blocked me because they can't handle me." If you walk away, they'll think they left because they're still obsessed. If you go silent, they'll spin it as, "They're too weak to face me." That's the trick. That's the fortress of lies they guard so desperately. So what's the lie we need to break here? It's this, that taking away your voice automatically takes away their power. It doesn't, because silence alone still gives them room to imagine, and imagination is all they need to stay inflated. If you want to collapse their system, you don't just remove your words, you remove your energy. You stop being fuel altogether. You stop being the oxygen that keeps their fire alive. Think of it like a parasite. A parasite doesn't care whether you're paying attention in love or hate. It only cares that you're feeding it. The only way to kill a parasite is not to fight it, not to talk to it, not to hate it, but to cut it off from your body completely. That's what nullification is. Not silence, but total removal of energy. When you no longer exist as a source in their mind, their lifeline begins to wither. But let's be honest. It's not easy. Because deep inside, you still want them to notice. You still want them to regret. You still want them to collapse visibly so you can see it happen. That's natural. That's human. But that's also the trap. Because the moment you're still waiting for their downfall, you're still feeding them. They live in your mind, even if only as an enemy. And as long as they live there, they still have supply. So here's where Stoicism changes everything. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." You cannot control how they twist your silence. You cannot control what they tell themselves or others. What you can control is your mind, your energy, your focus. When you choose to detach, when you stop fueling them in any form, you cut off the one thing they cannot live without. And this is what terrifies them the most. Not being hated, not being blocked, but being irrelevant. Because once you stop supplying energy, once you stop existing in their imagination, their mask begins to collapse under its own weight. So let me leave you with this, my friends. Attention is their lifeline. If you want to destroy their ego, don't just take away your words, take away your energy, take away your role in their play, take away their place in your mind. That's when the fire goes out. Write this in the comments right now. I cut off their fuel. Claim it, show it, live it. Because the moment you do, you stop being their lifeline and you start being your own source of strength. And stay with me, because next we're going to talk about the one thing that truly terrifies them beyond all else. Not your silence, not your anger, but your complete disappearance from their universe. I cut off their fuel. Write it now. Show them, show yourself, and show the world. Number 4. The real collapse. Nullification. The opposite of love is not hate. It's indifference. My friends, that one line contains the very weapon that collapses the narcissist's fragile empire. Because here's the truth. No contact is not the same as nullification. Silence removes your voice. Nullification erases their place in your universe. And to the narcissist, that erasure is worse than any insult, worse than any exposure, worse than any storm of anger. It is death to their ego. Picture this with me. Imagine a play where the narcissist has written the script. They cast themselves as the hero, the prize, the one everyone revolves around. And you're supposed to play the loyal admirer, the dependent, or maybe even the broken victim. Now, when you go silent, you might think you've stepped off their stage, but in their mind, the play goes on. They still picture you in the wings, still imagine you waiting for your next cue. They can spin silence into obsession, but when you nullify them, when you no longer even exist in their theater, when you've burned the script they wrote for you, that's when the whole performance crumbles. That's the difference. Silence leaves the stage empty, but still standing. Nullification tears the theater down. It's not just that you don't speak, it's that you don't think of them, don't orbit them, don't build your life in relation to them. You step into a whole new story where they have no role, no access, no significance, and this is what they cannot survive. Because their ego feeds not on reality, but on being remembered. Now I know what you're thinking. Isn't silence enough? Isn't blocking them enough? No, my friends, not if you're still checking their page, still replaying old conversations, still secretly hoping they'll regret it one day. That's not freedom. That's still being their supply. Quiet supply, invisible supply, but supply nonetheless. They don't need your voice to stay alive. They just need your attention. And if they live in your mind, they still have it. That's why silence alone feels empty, why you wonder why they haven't collapsed. Because you haven't nullified them, you've only muted them. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." If you don't bring your own shadow into the light, the part of you that still waits for their collapse, you'll stay trapped in their play. Nullification means not just silencing your voice, but transforming your mind. It means reclaiming your thoughts, your energy, your story, and refusing to let them write another word of it. Here's a metaphor for you. Think of a ghost. Ghosts don't live in the real world. They live in memory, in imagination, in the stories people keep telling. That's the narcissist when you leave. They haunt the edges of your silence, feeding off your thoughts about them. But ghosts only fade when the living stop telling their stories. That's nullification. It's when they stop existing, not just in your phone, but in your mind, in your heart, in your future. That's when the haunting ends. But let's admit something. It's hard. It's hard because you want closure. You want them to know they didn't win. You want them to feel the pain you felt. But if you're still waiting for that moment, you're still giving them power. They still exist in your inner world. And the only way to break that cycle is not to wait for their collapse, but to create yours, the collapse of their role in your story. That's nullification. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You cannot control whether the narcissist twists your silence into fantasy. You cannot control the mask they keep wearing, but you can control whether they exist in your mental universe. And when you erase them, when you no longer think of them as hero, villain, or anything at all, that is the collapse they fear most. So here's the truth. The narcissist's ego doesn't die when you go silent. It dies when you forget them. It dies when you build a life so bright, so full, so independent that their name doesn't even cross your lips. That's when the mask shatters, the illusions crumble, and the ego starves. Not because you tried to break it, but because you outgrew it. And today, I want you to claim that power. I want you to write in the comments right now, "I erase them completely." Say it, believe it, and let that be the declaration of your freedom. Because nullification is not about revenge. It's not about making them suffer. It's about making them irrelevant, and nothing destroys their ego more than realizing they no longer exist in your story. Stay with me, because next we'll uncover the Stoic secret that turns this erasure into true power. The kind of power that not only collapses their illusion, but rebuilds your life on a foundation they can never touch. I erase them completely. Write it below. Show them, show yourself, and show the world around you. Number 5. Stoic detachment and power. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Those words from Marcus Aurelius aren't just a reminder, they are a lifeline. Because here's the truth, my friends, narcissists thrive when you believe your silence controls them. They thrive when you make your healing about them. But Stoicism teaches us something very different. It tells us that real power isn't about their reaction or even their collapse. Real power is about mastering yourself so deeply that nothing they do, nothing they say, and nothing they imagine has the ability to move you anymore. That is Stoic detachment, and that is the kind of power that truly destroys their ego. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a puppet show. The narcissist is the puppeteer, pulling strings, smirking as the puppet dances. Every word, every tear, every silence is still a string in their mind. But Stoicism is when the puppet suddenly drops the strings, steps off the stage, and walks into the light of its own will. The puppeteer stands frozen because without control, without reaction, without dependence, they have nothing. That is the collapse, not your silence, your detachment. But here's the hard part. It's not easy. Detachment is not the same as distance. Anyone can block a number, avoid a room, or delete a photo. But Stoic detachment is deeper. It's the inner discipline that says, I will no longer let their existence shape my peace. And that's where many people stumble. They go silent, but inside they're still checking, still replaying, still waiting for signs of regret. That's not detachment, that's quiet obsession. And the narcissist knows it. They sense it. They thrive on it. Epictetus once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The narcissist builds their entire life on controlling your reaction. If they can make you angry, they win. If they can make you cry, they win. If they can make you disappear in silence but still think of them, they win. But when you reach that stoic place, where you do not react, do not flinch, do not care, that's when their power dissolves. Because they can twist your silence into obsession, but they cannot twist your indifference into fuel. Indifference starves them in a way silence never could. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of a storm raging around a mountain. The wind howls, the rain pounds, the thunder shakes the sky. But the mountain does not move. It doesn't argue with the storm. It doesn't fight back. It simply stands, unshaken, unmoved, untouchable. That is Stoic detachment, and the narcissist hates it because no matter how they twist, no matter how they try to spin stories in their head, they cannot handle someone who is unmoved by their chaos. But let's be honest, folks, why is it so difficult? Because deep inside we're human. We crave justice. We crave recognition. We crave to be understood. And the narcissist weaponizes that craving. They trick you into believing that your silence will teach them, that your distance will punish them, that your absence will make them regret. But that still keeps you chained to their story. Stoicism breaks that chain. Stoicism says, I don't need them to collapse for me to rise. And here's where the shift happens. Detachment isn't coldness. It isn't pretending you don't care while secretly suffering inside. Stoic detachment is warm, alive, and full. It means you fill your life so completely with purpose, with growth, with joy, that their existence becomes irrelevant. They can no longer write themselves into your story because your story has evolved into something bigger, brighter, and more meaningful than anything they can imagine. This is the secret weapon. Not silence, but serenity. Not distance, but discipline. When you stop orbiting around them and start living in alignment with yourself, you rob them of their only weapon, control. And that is the one thing they cannot bear. They cannot survive being powerless over you. They cannot stand being irrelevant in your mind. So here's your truth for today. Your strength isn't in waiting for their mask to fall. It's in becoming untouchable. It's in mastering your emotions so completely that nothing they do has the power to drag you back into their game. That's the Stoic way. That's the true collapse of their ego. Write this in the comments right now. I am untouchable. Say it. Show it. Let it sink into your bones, because when you live with that discipline, when you embody that mountain, when you choose detachment over reaction, you are no longer just surviving them. You are destroying their illusion. And stay with me, because next we'll dive into the step that flips the script entirely. Why transformation, not revenge, is the real death blow to their ego. I am untouchable. Write it now. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world. Number 6. Transformation, not revenge. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. That wisdom from Marcus Aurelius pierces through the noise, my friends. Because here's where so many fall into the trap. They confuse silence with victory and revenge with freedom. They believe that if the narcissist sees them suffer, sees them stay quiet, sees them disappear, then justice is served. But here's the truth that hurts yet heals. Revenge is still about them. Transformation is about you. And transformation, not revenge, is what truly destroys their ego. Think of it like this. Imagine planting a seed in a barren field. If you spend every day staring at the old weeds, hoping they wither, you'll never notice the new flower growing. Revenge is staring at the weeds. Transformation is watering the flower. The narcissist wants you stuck in their field, measuring your silence, waiting for their collapse. But when you begin to build your own garden, when your life blooms without them, their weeds no longer matter. Their lies lose power. Their ego starts to starve, because now you've proven the one thing they cannot spin, that you don't need them at all. Let's break the lie. They've told you that your silence is enough, that your absence will haunt them, that revenge means pulling away and leaving them in the dark. But that's still their narrative. That's still their script. What really shakes their mask is when you don't just disappear, you evolve. When your life becomes brighter, fuller, and more authentic than it ever was with them, their illusion cracks. Because nothing terrifies them more than the truth that you are thriving without their control. Carl Jung said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." That choice is the key. If you choose revenge, you're still bound to what happened. If you choose transformation, you rise above it. The narcissist cannot follow you there. They can spin silence into obsession, but they cannot spin joy into weakness. They cannot twist growth into dependence. When you transform, you step into a world they cannot rewrite. But let's be real, it's hard, because revenge feels tempting. It feels like justice. You want them to see you happy. You want them to feel your silence. You want them to taste their own medicine. And yet, if you're still living to prove something to them, you're still chained to them. They still have a role in your life. That's not freedom. That's dependence dressed as power. Transformation demands something harder. It demands that you stop caring whether they see it or not. It demands that you rise not for their eyes, but for your own soul. Think of a butterfly. The caterpillar doesn't spend its cocoon thinking, "I hope the world notices me when I come out." It transforms because transformation is in its nature, and when it emerges, no one can deny the change. That's what you must become. Not someone who hides in silence, waiting for revenge, but someone who steps into light so radiant that the narcissist's shadow dissolves in comparison. This is why transformation is the fatal blow. Narcissists live in stories. They tell themselves you'll never move on, that you're weak, that you can't survive without them. They cling to those illusions because the truth that you can live joyfully without them, would shatter their entire self-image. And when you live that truth, when you embody that transformation, their ego collapses. Not because you wanted it to, but because it cannot survive your reality. Marcus Aurelius also said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." In the same way, waste no more time imagining what will make them collapse. Just become the person who is free, authentic, whole. That's the ultimate collapse, the realization that they no longer play any role in your existence. So here's your affirmation for today. Write it in the comments. I choose transformation over revenge. Say it, claim it, and live it. Because when you transform, you win twice. You free yourself and you destroy their illusion. You rise beyond their reach, beyond their lies, beyond their mask. And that, my friends, is the kind of power no narcissist can twist. Stay with me. Because next, we'll go deeper into the shadow. The part of you that tolerated them, the wounds they exploited, and why facing that darkness is the step that guarantees you'll never fall into their trap again. I choose transformation over revenge. Write it now. Show them, show yourself, and show the world. Number 7. Facing your own shadow. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Those words from Carl Jung strike at the heart of your healing, my friends. Because here's the raw truth. Silence won't break them, and transformation won't last unless you face the part of you that once accepted them. The narcissist thrived not because of their strength, but because of the shadows you left unexamined. Your wounds, your fears, your longing to be enough, those were the doors they walked through. And if you never face that darkness, you risk leaving the door open again. Imagine a house with locked windows, but one hidden crack in the wall. No matter how strong the locks, the intruder will always find that crack. That's what your shadow is, the part of you you've avoided. Maybe it's the fear of abandonment, the hunger for validation, or the belief that you're only worthy if you're needed. The narcissist saw that crack and forced it wide open. But now, standing in the silence, you have the chance to seal it, not with denial, but with awareness. Here's the lie people believe, that leaving the narcissist is enough. But leaving without healing only sets you up to repeat the cycle. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If you don't name the shadow, it will keep drawing the same kind of pain into your life. Facing your shadow means asking the hard questions. Why did I tolerate their lies? Why did I shrink myself to fit their love? Why did I let their voice become louder than my own? This is not weakness, it's power. Because the moment you see the shadow clearly, it no longer controls you. The moment you name it, it loses its grip. That's when your silence is no longer fear, but strength. That's when your transformation is not just a new mask, but a rebirth. And that's the step the narcissist will never take. They will keep running from their shadow, while you grow by facing yours. That difference alone makes you stronger than they will ever be. So let me leave you with this, my dear friends. The narcissist's ego dies not when you hate them, not when you silence them, not when you try to prove your worth. Their ego dies when you no longer need their story at all, because you have faced your own darkness, healed it, and rebuilt a life where they no longer exist. That is the ultimate collapse. That is freedom. Now it's your turn to claim it. Write this in the comments. I face my shadow and I am free. Let it be your declaration to yourself, your proof to the world, your reminder that you are no longer a character in their play. And if this journey resonated with you, press that like button, subscribe, and stay connected, because this path of growth and freedom is just beginning. Together, we'll keep breaking illusions, uncovering truths, and rising into the kind of strength that no narcissist can ever touch. I face my shadow, and I am free. Write it below. Show yourself, show the world, and let the narcissist's illusion collapse in the silence of your transformation.